Hi, my name is Gage Allen, and I'm the creative director here at Player One Trailers, where I wrote, directed, and captured the Gondwa, Nightstalker, and Pounce trailers for Path of Titans. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to Path of Titans' new replay tools, which are the same tools we use to capture the official trailers for the game. What are replays? Well, the replay system gives players the ability to record a live gameplay sequence, which can then be played back later, though what gets recorded is not a video file. The system instead saves all of the data about the state of the game and inputs from nearby players as the action takes place. When a replay file is played back, the game uses all of that data to recreate everything that happened. So let's get started. Replays can be recorded in both single-player and multiplayer mode. For now, we're just going to start a single-player game using an existing Metriacanthosaurus. The default hotkey to start and stop recording a replay is U, though this can easily be changed in the settings menu. So to start our first recording, I'll just press U, and we'll see an on-screen message pop up to let us know that recording is started. Now that we're rolling, I'm just going to have our Metri run around a little bit. Do some calls. Maybe a jump or two. And then wrap it up by taking a nap. I'll hit the U key again to stop recording the actions I just did. And another on-screen message has popped up to let us know that the replay has stopped. So let's go check it out. So now, let's log out and get back to the main menu and click on the big Replays button. This leads to a time-stamped list of all the replays that we've recorded. And right now, we just have the one. So, I'll click on the replay to select it. Then down at the bottom right, I can click the play button to load it. And here we are again, seeing my Metri and the sequence that we just recorded. Moving the mouse moves the cursor on the screen. And I can, of course, hover over all the sliders and toggles on this somewhat intimidating menu here on the left. But thankfully, in the lower half of the menu are some traditional video playback controls. And because our replay is already playing, the playback bar down here shows where we're at in the replay timeline. If I move my mouse cursor outside of the menu and left click and hold, then I can use the mouse to move the camera around my Metri. I can also zoom in and out using the mouse scroll wheel. And because we're set to follow mode by default, you'll notice that the camera is locked onto the Metri, and it behaves pretty much the same way it does when playing the game. But let's pause the replay for a moment by clicking the pause button. And now I'm going to move my mouse cursor to the top of the menu and click the hide button. You can also press the escape key to hide or show the menu at any time. Hiding the menu doesn't change how the camera behaves. I can still zoom in and out using the scroll wheel, or left click and hold and move my mouse to move the camera around the Metri. Though I think it's about time we gave ourselves a bit more freedom. So let's press the escape key again to bring up the menu. And at the top here, you'll see this bar with the player name and number, and arrow buttons on either side. Next to that on the right is the follow button, which I'm now going to click to toggle the follow cam off. Pressing the escape key again to hide the menu, I'm now in free camera mode, where I can use the movement keys, which by default are mapped to WASD, to move the camera forward and backwards, and left and right through space. I can also left click and hold with my mouse to control the pitch and yaw. Leaving the Metri behind for a moment, I'll just fly around the area, get used to these free camera controls. It's quite something, isn't it? It's always moments like these that I forget that we were just playing a game a minute ago. But enough admiring the view. It's time to head back. I'll press the escape key again to bring the menu up. And as long as we're here, let's adjust the playback speed down to about 0.3. Now when I click the play button, everything begins playing back at 30% of the original speed. Slowing down time is definitely fun, but if we look just a bit further down the menu, we can start to truly exert our godlike powers using the time of day slider. We can do night, we can do day, we can do morning, and we can even do a nice sunset. Also in the menu below the time of day slider is our less instantaneous but equally impressive ability to control the weather. Clicking these arrows on the side will just select our desired weather change. Rain is one of my favorites. So with that selected, I now need to click the Set Reset Weather button to enact the change. Note that changing the weather actually requires the passage of time. So I'm going to set the playback speed back up to 100%. And now we have ourselves a beautiful rainy sunset. Right on cue, my Metri is ready for a nap, and we've reached the end of the replay. We can click anywhere in the playback bar to rewind the replay to a particular moment. Though if we do that, we'll have to move around with the free camera to find my Metri again. You'll notice that the weather and the time of day didn't change when I clicked to a different moment in the replay timeline. That's because those particular playback settings are completely independent from what we recorded in the replay itself, meaning that the weather and the time of day can be adjusted on the fly within any replay you've recorded. Now that you're familiar with the basics of how the replay system works, the rest of this tutorial will cover each of the different camera settings in a little bit more detail. But first, we put together a little example to show you what can be done when you have a pretty good understanding of the replay tools. So let's roll the tape. Pretty cool, right? I'm hoping after you watch this tutorial and spend some time practicing using these tools, you can create something like that. Now before we get into adjusting camera settings, just a quick heads up. Sometimes when making adjustments, you may not like the results you're getting, and you want to start over with a clean slate. Well, you can just hit the Reset to Default button, and your camera settings will revert to their start condition. The first settings you'll want to get familiar with are camera movement. Within the Replay tool, click on this gear icon. Camera speed should be pretty straightforward, where high values are fast and low values are slow. Vertical movement speed, of course, controls how fast the camera ascends or descends. Interpolation amount smooths out the motion of the camera. In its current configuration, a low interpolation value actually increases the amount that movement is smoothed. Also note that interpolation will affect all camera movement, including tilt and pan. Camera movement can be controlled either by mouse and keyboard or with a game controller. Whether you're creating a slow creeping shot through the grass or a wide airborne vista, having a good handle on these controls will ensure that you can create the best possible shot. Now let's get into the nuts and bolts. The exposure in the scene is controlled automatically. If you wish to lighten or darken what you see, you can adjust the values in the auto exposure bias. Use a light touch though, as a little goes a long way. Next, let's talk about zoom, aka field of view, and focus, aka depth of field. Your zoom control is right here. If you decrease the value, you'll get a more compressed view for those nice close-ups. And if you increase the value, you'll get a wide view for those sweeping vistas. Focus is mostly controlled across the aperture settings here, and the focal distance and sensor width here. Note that for most of these sliders, 0 will actually give you the default value for the effect. Focal distance sets how far away the focal point is from the camera. But here's a tip. If you want to set your distance to a value outside the range of the slider, or if you want to be more precise, you can click on the number field and enter a value manually. Sensor width and aperture are how you control the amount of blur. Aperture changes the width of the area that's in focus. You can see a low value creates a narrow band of focus, while a higher value leaves more in focus. The sensor width will have a greater effect on the radius of the blur effect. If you're trying to find your focus distance, try creating a narrow focus first. That will allow you to clearly see where the focal plane is located. Once you're happy on your distance setting, you can adjust your aperture and sensor width to find the right look for your shot. Depth blur is a system that operates independently from the other focus settings. You can use it in situations where you might want to keep only the background in soft focus. The distance slider controls how far away the effect will start, and the radius controls the size of the blur effect. The Path of Titans replay tool also provides a few post-processing effects that you may wish to use to add a little extra visual interest to your videos. Chromatic aberration intensity creates a color fringing effect, perfect for your 1980s cinematics. And the offset slider will control how far from the center the effect starts. Under the rendering tab, you can find controls for vignetting, which is darkening effect around the edges of the frame, and bloom, which will add a diffuse glow around bright things, such as the sun. The replay system is designed for players to capture gameplay moments and to make them look amazing with a custom camera setup. Just load up your replay, adjust your camera settings, and start recording. If you're unsure how to record from a replay, keep in mind that you will need an external program to capture the visuals from the game. There are lots of free programs that let you capture your gameplay. Take a look at the many that exist, and use the one that feels right to you. Now there's one more thing before we wrap. You can not only record replays, but you can share them. You can send the replay file you recorded to a friend, and as long as they have a compatible build of the game, they will be able to watch your replay exactly as it happened. And to help celebrate the launch of the Path of Titans replay tool, we are giving you the exact same replay from our mini-movie with the 2 raptors and the 2 T-Rexes to help you get a head start on an interesting sequence to practice on. To download this replay, check in the description of this video for instructions from Alderaan Games on how to download the file. Once you have downloaded the .replay file, you should place it within this file path where your replays are kept. Once that's done, just boot up the game, and it should show up in your replay library. And that is the end of our tutorial. I hope this inspires you to create something cool in Path of Titans. I've spent a lot of time in this world of ancient beasts from long ago, and it has been an absolute privilege to make the trailers that so many of you have become so passionate about. Now, let's see what kind of stories you tell.